I liked how in the movie, this song, Darling Nikki, particularly, even in the movie, they were all like, that was embarrassingly terrible. And I can't believe that you did that. It's going to ruin your career. Like, Hello, and welcome everyone to yet another week of 1001 Album Complaints. This is the podcast where lifelong friends, musicians, and music critics go through albums from Robert Dimery's list of 1001 albums you must hear before you die, give our in-depth dives, critiques, and complaints, and tell you at the end whether or not you actually need to listen to it before you die. This week, dear listeners, we have been listening to Purple Rain by Prince and the Revolution, but it's Prince. We're going to listen to a little bit of the opening track and do some tweet-length reviews, but before we do that, just want to remind everybody out there, if you like what you're hearing, you can go ahead and subscribe. You can write us an email. We have an email, 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com. You can, more importantly, tell a friend about it. We are doing great with growth through word of mouth, and we'll find that those are the best listeners, people who get a friend recommendation. So if you want to do that, fantastic. Otherwise, strap in and get ready. We're going to play a little bit of the opening track from Prince and the Revolution's 19... You have not gone so crazy that you've lost your headphones or whatever other device you're listening to this on. We're going to start throwing this around the room and get some initial impressions. I am going to throw this one first over to Adam. Adam, give me your encapsulated tweet-length review.
Sure, this is Adam, first time through this album in its entirety.
What?
And regardless of the genre, whether it's considered pop or R&B or maybe just a movie soundtrack, this album has one of the greatest rock and roll screams ever put to tape. It's also somewhat mediocre in my opinion. So we'll see which side wins.
Okay, coming in hot already. Let's toss it on over to Phil. Phil.
Yeah, Phil here. I definitely had heard this record many times, and I feel like this record is really summed up early when Prince says, "We're gathered here today to get through this thing we call life." And that means forever, and that's a mighty long time. And I think it's where I'm gonna come in on this one.
My question is that a critique of the album, or is that just a critique of life in general, which seems like it takes goddamn forever?
Yeah, I think we'll dig into that as we explore.
Okay, fair enough. Rob, let me know what you think.
Yeah, my tweet length review of Purple Rain, which I had heard before, is these songs aren't that good.
Oh, well. First of all, you guys are all wrong.
Rob, you ignorant slut.
Yeah, so my tweet length review, this is Tom here. My tweet length review is basically Purple Rain is a flawed, uneven, and occasionally bloated vanity project that still manages to be one of the most iconic albums of all time. I think that they can both coexist. It can be a bloated vanity project, it can be very uneven, and it can still be one of the most iconic albums of all time. I did not necessarily say the best albums of all time. I said iconic.
I mean, I agree the marketing was good.
Well, yeah.
He made a movie to market it, so... Or was it the other way around?
He picked the color, for Christ's sakes.
Right.
Yeah. So, released June 25th, 1984. Purple Rain, sixth album by Prince, it's officially the soundtrack to the movie Purple Rain that was also released in 1984. Before we get to all that, we're just going to do like a quick background on Prince. Everybody is relatively familiar with Prince, I would imagine, but we're gonna just do a little bit of a run through. Prince Rogers Nelson, born June 7th, 1958 in Minneapolis. He had a jazz singer for a mother and a pianist composer for a father. Basically, if you've seen the movie Purple Rain, it's a highly dramatized version of his life. But highly dramatized. His parents divorced when he was 10. That led to him having a pretty unstable living environment. He was kind of sometimes living with his mom and stepdad, sometimes living with his dad. Eventually, his dad threw him out of the house. He ends up moving into the basement of one of his next door neighbors, the Andersons. And actually, the son of the Andersons is the guy Andre Simone, who ends up being the bass player in the Revolution. So good for them. They took in a poor struggling kid as a charity act, and they got a career for their son out of it. So
if you had said that he moved into the basement of the local sex shop, I also would have found that credible.
You know how parents are required by law to say it's not their weird kid's fault that they got divorced?
Ouch. He's eccentric, certainly.
Eccentric, yes.
But you know what? Listen,
Good word
he
for it.
always had a really good sense of himself and what he wanted to do. And that's something that I personally have always respected. You talk about somebody like a David Bowie. David Bowie was like a long-haired, kind of queerish dude rolling around the streets of London or Birmingham, wherever the hell he was from, certainly getting picked on by people for being kind of fey and eccentric, and smash cut 8 years later and everybody in the world wants to be him. And Prince kind of had a similar thing going on where he was this weird little, and by little I mean little, he's a little guy, very eccentric, dressing to, even for the 80s, he dressed extreme, and somehow managed to become not only like one of the most successful musicians of all time, but like a style icon, and just he's one of the few mononyms that exist in the world that you just know exactly who you're talking about.
Forgot about that.
You know? You had Madonna, Cher, Prince, Bono. Can't think of a whole bunch more.
And yet that name wasn't satisfying to him for very much long after this album was out, because then he had to change it to a symbol.
Well, yeah, that was due to some record disputes, right? Like he basically was locked into a record contract that he was not a fan of, and he wanted to release albums but not have the record company be able to fully monetize on him and his image and all that he had built up, which is why he changed it to the symbol.
So he rebranded. Wow.
Well, there was famously he would perform with like slave written on the side of his face because he had like contractual obligations about the amount of concerts he had to perform and the amount of albums he had to put out, which terrible life that you live in. I make millions of dollars to make.
He does, guys. He does have the icon, the logo,
the symbol. Yeah,
the symbol. It is emblazoned on his bat bike that is on the cover of Purple Rain. I don't know if you've checked out the cover, but it's hiding in there on his custom made purple Prince
3/4 size motorcycle. Sorry.
Listen, again, I know there are many anecdotes about bad, corrupt record executives trapping artists, great artists in contracts, but do you think his eccentricity just had a little bit something to do with whatever was going on there too?
Well, here's what I would say. Yes, his eccentricity, I'm sure, had something to do with that, but also his, again, sort of very clear vision of what he wanted to do. Like when he was 19 years old, based upon the strength of a demo that he made, he gets a recording contract with Warner Brothers. They gave him a 3-album deal, promising him full creative control, and he retained all of his publishing rights. Like, you don't get that as a 19-year-old with nothing on your resume, unless you are very much demanding that. And like, that is absolutely something that I need complete control of, not just the making of it, but what I can do with it afterwards.
I mean, just to support what you're saying, I agree. He has oodles of confidence, and he's a great example of that confidence is sort of everything, I think.
Sure. Confidence is sexy. It really, what they say, Prince is like this is a quote that I can't remember who said it, but somebody basically said in the 80s, Prince was the guy at the party who would steal either your boyfriend or your girlfriend, depending on if he wanted to. There is not any indication that he was gay even, but just that he could sort of be like, listen, you can be here with your boyfriend and I'm just going to take him because I'm cooler than you and we're going to go hang out and do stuff, or I'm going to take your girlfriend and we're going to do some stuff, Also, it is important to note about Prince that he is one of those he's a crazy virtuoso. His first album that he put out, He played all 27 instruments on the album. He wrote and recorded and produced and arranged all of the songs. And he produced all of the songs for his entire career, basically. He produced everything. He was that guy who just wanted to have that creative control.
Well, it's funny you mentioned about the confidence thing, because I remember seeing, it might have been Bandstand was that Dick Clark's show back in the day?
Yeah.
So I think they had Prince on there with his band, and he was super young, 19 or 20, and Dick Clark comes over to interview him, and he almost seemed like he had something going on. Like he wouldn't answer, he wouldn't look at Dick Clark in the eye, he was super shy. So it's interesting to think that maybe that confidence built over the first few albums to where he became the stylized icon, this version of a musician.
Well, it's interesting. There is a phenomena where you are a crippling introvert unless you're on stage. Michael Stipe from REM has famously said that he is the kind of person who is super shy. He will not engage strangers in conversation. He doesn't like being famous because people want to talk to him, and he's really standoffish and shy, but super eccentric and flamboyant and emotive when he's on stage. It's like
there's a stage version, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So can we talk about the multi-instrumentalist thing? Because it's undeniable to a certain extent, meaning he does play a lot of instruments, and he did he tracked a lot of the instruments for maybe even for this record or some of the ones for this record, but definitely on previous records, right? But I also think, and this came up a little bit on the Lenny Kravitz episode, that itself is a marketing decision. Meaning, how good do you actually have to be marketed then as a musical prodigy? That's a lane that I think that executives identified, and maybe even he identified early, and definitely Lenny Kravitz identified for himself. And just because you happen to play drums and piano and can hold down a beat to play a drum track, it doesn't make you Stevie Wonder. I just want to throw that out there. Show me where the virtuosity is on display.
Well, I'm looking at the For You credits, right? Tom, you're saying this is the record where he played everything, right?
Yeah, that's supposedly he played everything except for there was one person who helped write one verse of a song or something like that. Everything else is him.
But he's got lead vocals, backing vocals, all instrumentation, producer, arranger, engineer, and dust cover design. Okay, so those last two, Rob, to your point, there's nobody else on earth who could have been placing microphones and moving wires. He had to engineer this. There was nobody better than Prince to do that art. There's literally nobody.
We have another term for that in the English. It's called control freak.
Yeah, 100%.
And I could see
control
that.
freak.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think that part of that comes down to having such a manicured image, and again, a really clear sense of what you want to put out into the world. And Rob, you talk about where's the virtuosity on display. I am familiar with the second album that he put out. It's just called Prince, another one where he did all of the instrumentation on it. It's a great album, and honestly, there's some really funky good drum beats on it. There's some really good bass on it. It's the kind of performance
is really hot.
That song is hot as hell. That's a really great song. And really I don't listen to that and think, man, you should have got somebody else to play that beat. Or, man, you should have got somebody else to play those keys or something like that. It sounds like exactly what you'd want it to be. Again, it's not flashy, but it is very, very good.
I will admit that I'm only really familiar with this record. And what I'm saying is you could call him a virtuoso maybe vocally. That's reasonable based on this record, and perhaps on the guitar, or at least he's a good guitar player, certainly. But I don't hear it any other places. In fact, I hear a lot of drum machine and surprising lack of bass on many of the songs, for instance.
Sure. Well, no, they had a full band for this. So the Revolution was a band that he was kind of assembling over time, because do you want to talk about The Time also, which is another band that he put together and wrote a bunch of songs for. From the time that he put out his first album in 1978 until 1984, when Purple Rain was released, he put out a total of 8 albums, 5 of which with Prince and 3 through The Time, writing and producing basically every song. One of those albums was 1999, which was a double album, by the way, which I didn't quite realize was a double album, but it was a double album, sold 4 million copies, and he made a movie, like all during that time.
Yeah, I didn't realize how hard he was working between 78 and 84, and that assumes he did no work before 1978. He just woke up brilliant in 1978, you know?
Yeah. Did he have a breakfast cereal by any chance? Because that's the true sign of the trifecta.
More power to him. He definitely worked hard. He's a very industrious character. I will certainly give him that. But I do think this is one of those examples where the prolific nature of his songwriting might have gotten in the way of the quality control aspect.
1000% agree with you, Rob. Prince put out so many albums over the course of his career, and they are all very uneven. They all have a couple of really good songs on them, and then mostly it is songs that they should have been developed further. And we'll talk about it specifically in terms of one of the songs that we're going to do on our focus list here, but you can tell that there was an idea, a nugget of an idea. We talked about this on the Bruce episode. Nugget of a good idea, not developed, workshopped long enough, and thrown down on tape, and they moved on. And I think that with somebody who is as crazy prolific as Prince is, you get that problem of like, well, why would I revisit this? I already wrote this thing and it's done and I moved on. It's also, I think, part of the reason why he was so successful writing songs that he gave to other people that they then workshopped and turned into big hits.
That's an interesting thought, yeah.
Like the Sinead O'Connor Nothing Compares to You is just superior to Prince's, any Prince version of Nothing Compares to You that I've heard. You know, the Bangles' Manic Monday, fantastic. Interestingly, the year that he put out Purple Rain, which we have not actually talked that much about the album Purple Rain at this point, but that album, first of all, sold 23 million copies, which, I mean, just come on. That's a lot of copies. Not only did it win a Grammy, it also won an Oscar. So he is like, it won the Oscar for the best original score, original score for a movie. So he's like halfway to an EGOT.
Some Oscars are invalid. Let's just say it. Some Oscars are invalid. Listen, in this age of EGOTing, that's a squeak by Oscar. Like what was
like
what else was
hack,
even up?
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's definitely an Oscar hack. Yeah, best song or best movie soundtrack. That's bullshit.
Yo, Rob, this is a good goal, right? Let's hack an Oscar.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's gonna happen. The problem that you got nowadays is you got these absolute killers writing these fucking Disney songs that are just really objectively good songs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't compete with that shit.
Yeah, and Encanto blows me away.
Yeah.
I guess that's Pixar, but we can move on. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Fair enough. But in that same year, a song that he also wrote that Shaka Khan did won a Grammy in that same year. So basically 2 of his songs won Grammys. One of them was for best soundtrack that he won for Purple Rain, and then I think it was like best R&B song. Shaka Khan won for a Prince song that he wrote. He just throws out a bunch of shit. He's real prolific. But let's talk about, we can't not talk about the movie Purple Rain when you talk about the soundtrack.
Yes,
for Purple
speaking
Rain.
of things he's not great at, acting.
100% agree with you.
I had never heard him speak in my entire life. I didn't know Prince could speak until I started watching Purple Rain. By the way, I only made it an hour. Right. I made it an hour into it and was just like, oh, God.
Well, you missed the part where his dad shot himself?
Oh, spoiler alert. Thanks, you bastard.
I was kind of half watching it as well. But just for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, he dresses exactly like he dresses on stage, but all the time. So he basically looks insane.
Yeah. He basically looks insane.
That pirate shirt.
Yeah, pirate. He looks like a pirate.
Even
like
in the
constantly.
context of like a highly stylized 80s movie, he stands out as somebody who is taking it a bit too far. But it is, again, it's like a very stylized version of his life. That club that they performed at in the movie, what was it, First Avenue? Mm-hmm. That's the real club that he played at a bunch in Minneapolis, and also where 3 of the songs on this album were recorded live at a benefit concert in front of a studio audience, which I didn't know I found that out like a couple of years ago, but it kind of blew my mind because it doesn't necessarily sound like.
That's true. Yeah, they don't sound like live recordings. Are we also going to gloss over all? His portrayal in the movie, however over dramatized it is not flattering to him at all. He's a woman abuser in the movie on a couple occasions. And then there's the part where he has women in his band who are like begging him to just even listen to the song they wrote, and he's like, "Fuck you." And then eventually he listens to it, and it's Purple Rain,
Right. Which, by the way, he also wrote. So it's like, because that's the revolution. Those are the real members of his band. He made them all take acting classes. He probably exempted himself from those acting classes based upon the output.
Blatant.
But
Something.
Here's the thing that I want to get across about this movie, which it just cracked me up. He demanded that he would not re-sign with his management company unless they got him a movie deal. He was like, I will not sign with you unless you get me a movie deal. And at the time, he had not had any acting experience. He had a couple of music videos and like a few live TV performances, but that's it. There was nobody clamoring for a Prince movie. And in fact, they shopped it around town and it got turned down by everybody. And so somebody on his management team said, well, I'll just fucking produce the movie then, I guess. But $7.2 million budget, $72 million box office.
Like he knew something they didn't, right?
It's still okay. Let's put it in time. So it's still revered. I just watched the movie for the first time this week. It's abjectly terrible, but people still have a warm fuzzy feeling about it to this day. So I was a little surprised by that. I understand that the songs are connected to it and people like the songs, but really they seem totally separate. But the context in the 80s, right, is that the rise of MTV. Was this the most charitable read, or the way I conceptualize it is that Prince was one of the early adopters of the music video and said, oh, wait a minute, now a visual image is going to be used to market and sell music, and that's going to become much more important than it was even 4 years ago.
I need
and
to
he
choose
capitalized
the visual
on it.
image that pairs with the sound.
Well, I like how
he was positioned to do it.
By the way, I'm just picturing this world and where it's just like Prince in the studio in 1978. MTV doesn't exist, and he's still dressed like a goddamn pirate. Just like doing his thing,
like,
going grocery shopping and shit.
Like a purple
Finally,
pirate.
people can see how much.
Totally.
First, what a weirdo. Let's just get that out there. Prince is a weirdo.
Such a weirdo. And never stopped being weird,
sure.
by the way. Never.
Agreed.
No.
Phil had shared a story with me. Phil, I don't know if it was an engineer or producer that you know that had either a couple people removed. Worked with some, right?
I'm happy to dive in. So I met a guy in a recording studio who was he was a luthier and just like at a tech for the band. He was like he worked in the studio and he worked on the road for the band who owned the studio that I was tracking in. And he had been Prince's guitar guy, I guess, for a year or so. And he said when he got offered the gig, he called a few friends and they were like, you have to take the gig, but also like know that you'll be fired unceremoniously. Just like know that going in, you'll be fired unceremoniously, which he said did happen. He said after about more than a year, he said they had one sound check that went really terribly. And after the sound check, Prince was pissed. And everybody went to lunch. When Prince came back, he was still pissed, and he found some fan was not running as to cool off his amps before the second sound check. So he wanted to find out whose job it was to turn the fans on and off, and it was his, so he got fired for not turning off a fan or something. But in addition to that, he said that, I want to say it was Madison Square Garden. He said they did some tour that was opening, like somewhere crazy, like Madison Square Garden, and he said that Prince, like that, they set up for sound check. After sound check, Prince fired the front of house guy, just fired him. Just like, you're fired. I'm going to get a new sound guy. So they're like scrambling around the city just to find somebody who could run the rig. Real literally, and these sorts of many stories like this.
Well, I'm sure that's how you get the best output. It's just fire the guy unceremoniously and make them drag some random dude off the street to run your rig.
I'm sure he knows people, but yes. Yes.
But I've always put it in or this is how I think about it, is that there's a lot of times when people get famous and get rich and that makes them weird. Certainly that process changes you, I'm sure. But I think of Prince as kind of the opposing example. This is a weirdo who also got famous and he just
and rich.
He leaned into it even farther.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely picture like a 7-year-old Prince just like walking around in high heels and like, like strings of pearls and lace and just being like, yeah, trust me, this is going to be cool someday. And somehow it did make it cool. I mean, I wonder how much of an impact he had on the popular fashion of the day, because he was definitely iconic is the only way to describe it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Prince when you see him. If I ran into Prince in a t-shirt and jeans, I'd be so disappointed. I'd be like, come on, man. Like, what? No, nothing going on? You don't even have, like, weird earrings or something in? Okay, fine. It's got to be exhausting to keep that up all the time. Anyway, random tidbit that I did not realize until later that I loved. Do you know who played the dad in Purple Rain?
Oh, I did recognize him.
I recognize the guy.
He played
but I don't know
Samson Simpson in Half Baked. Which I was definitely like rewatching the movie and trying to be like, shut up, bitch! Like one of my favorite lines from Half Baked. Anyway, oh man. So anyway, listen. 150 million albums sold over the course of Prince's career. You cannot deny that he had a formula that when it worked, damn did it work. We talked a little bit about Let's Go Crazy. We can do a little bit, we don't have to do a super deep dive on it. Before we move on to the beautiful ones, anybody want to say anything about Let's Go Crazy?
The only thing I'd like to add is that, I really do respect Prince, and he shows really tremendous growth from his 1978 initial release through Purple Rain with the production and the sound quality, and really it's really evolving always. This is a big step from 1999, and that's probably the last nice thing I'm going to say.
Is it that Prince and the Revolution in 1984 on the Purple Rain soundtrack still have a more restrained use of synth than Bruce Springsteen does on Born in the USA?
I mean, it would be infuriating if it was even anywhere close to the fucking sanity.
Listen to this song and tell me that the synth on this song is less cloying and less.
But this is the most rock and roll
then.
song.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing. This is actually one of my favorite songs on the record because it sounds like rock music. It's about rock and roll excess. It's about partying. It's about soloing. It's about energy. I almost thought it kind of paralleled the hair metal strand that was going on in the 80s, the Motley Crues of the world and Poison and such. It also has a little bit of Neutron Dance in it, but yeah, I agree. On this song, the synth is very restrained. Through the rest of the album, no effing way, dude.
Sure, I'm not saying that is necessarily from beginning to end a restrained synth clinic or anything like that. But
we're talking about the beautiful ones, right?
No, we're talking about Let's Go Crazy.
Oh, okay. For a second there, I was getting very confused.
No. We can move on to the beautiful ones. Let's just pop
hold on.
it.
The anecdote I remember, I don't know if Tom's going to try to cop to this one or not, is when we were in a band and we were thinking about playing this song. And I got a lot of crap, I believe, from one Tom Monahan that this was not a popular song, that no one would recognize this song if played in a room. And then my comeuppance came because Prince was booked to play the Super Bowl that year.
That was definitely me.
Lo and behold,
that was definitely me.
He opened the damn set with Let's Go Crazy.
I definitely didn't know this song. I feel like in many ways you highlighted the importance of this song. And lo and behold, you were absolutely right.
I also gave you a lot of shit for that too, Rob. That was both Phil and I gave you shit saying that nobody would know it. And the comeuppance that was received, by the way, was basically the greatest Super Bowl halftime show that has ever been performed. And
Correct.
It probably is up there with like one of the better like condensed concerts that have ever been performed. How do you get it to rain as you're closing with Purple Rain? How does that work? He really did kill it on that one. Dancing around on a wet stage in like 4-inch stilettos while rocking.
I agree that halftime show was excellent. Possibly the best ever. But now this is going to be a knock against Prince's whole career, which is look at that set list that he played. He played, I think, 3 or 4 songs from this record. and then he played a couple covers. And that's it. But no, he's this
And
great,
that was the
prolific
greatest, right?
artist for 35 years. Give me a break.
He is a great prolific artist for 35 years.
Okay, it didn't show in that Super Bowl set.
This is one of those things where, Rob, you're a big fan of saying that, like, well, you're wrong because, if you have an opinion about music that it disagrees with mine, well, you're just wrong.
I do love saying that. You're right.
You do love saying that, yes. I would not necessarily say that I like a lot of the Prince material that was out, but you cannot deny that man has somehow struck a chord and sold a hell of a lot of albums and had a hell of a lot of hits.
Agreed.
So I 100% copped it. Prince is the ultimate greatest hits guy. He could put together a killer double album of greatest hits, and it would be nothing but bangers wall to wall.
I mean, I'm looking.
But he did it over the course of like 40 albums.
I'm looking at his Spotify top 10, and I mean, they're all rippers. And there's actually only one that I just personally hate, but that's just because I hate that song.
Wait, which one is that?
Little Red Corvette. Just can't.
Oh, I love that song. It's a
I
great
can't
song.
get
To be
over it.
clear, I'm not arguing he's bad. I'm arguing that he's overrated. That's all.
Okay.
And
Yeah, fair
because he
enough,
is
fair
rated
enough.
very, very highly.
He is rated
very
very
highly.
highly. I agree.
And part of that is personality. I think that he has the kind of personality that people want to like because he's weird, but he's not like off-puttingly weird. I think it makes people feel like they're a little dangerous liking somebody like Prince, or that they're like eccentric too by proxy because they like a guy who's so obviously weird. Anyway, let's move on. We're going to move on to the next song on the album that we're going to talk about, which I think illustrates, again, it's
It's better when it was called Crimson and Clover.
that is boosh.
This is the one where a second ago you're talking about like rock and roll excess and like ripping guitar solos, and I was like, nothing even starts to happen until 3.5 minutes into a 5-minute song.
right.
That's kind of a theme with him on a few of these songs. This is the one that I highlighted as suffering from that prolific artist syndrome, where the melody over the chorus is just so in lockstep with like the synth that's going on in the background, no counter melodies, and it just hammers that one idea to death. And by the time, and Rob, I know you've stated that that's just pop music. I don't necessarily agree that that's pop music. I think pop music does have a lot of repetition in it, but repetition is made palatable by the counterpoints, and like an underdeveloped song doesn't have the counterpoints, and this just didn't have the counterpoints for me. There is a point in this song, it's like at like 2:42, where the synth just starts doing this like pitch bending thing, and it bends itself so far out of pitch that it just gets like comically unpalatable. Let's just play just like a little snippet of that starting at 2:42, and we can it's not.
He dials it in after a minute, but I'm glad you highlighted this, because this is the sort of thing that a third-party producer would say, nah, you're going to have to do
that's a
that
bad
again.
idea. Yeah,
you're going to have to roll
right.
that one again.
You should think a little harder about what's going to happen in the back half of this tune.
Totally.
I do think the freak out at the end, I talked about what a great screamer he is. And the end of this tune, in the movie, he's on the ground freaking out and pointing at Apollonia. Do you want me? Whatever the line is. But I would love to see him in the studio, because he is absolutely shredding it on those vocal take, on this vocal take. And I totally dug that.
Agreed, he's a great vocal. He has Lenny Kravitz syndrome, again, which is he is a great singer, but he uses the same trick too many times. It loses all its power.
Are you referring to the trick of the one scream note, or are you referring to the trick of the falsetto? Because he goes back to both of those wells pretty often.
I think he's a very talented singer, but yes, I was referring to the screaming in the back half.
Yeah,
of
the
song,
scream,
the scream
right.
vamp thing. Yeah,
Like Steven Tyler has a hard scream vamp, right? He's got a dow that he likes to go to a lot.
Yeah. And I will admit, listen, if I could scream like that, I'd probably do it all the damn time too. But I do think that he has good vocal range, and he's got a good timbre to his voice. Like, I actually found his voice to be pretty pleasant. And so I don't think he needs to be using that crutch as much as he does. But you are right. It is great. Like, it is an iconic scream.
A lot of content here, guys.
Yeah. All right, so I'll start this one. First off, Tipper Gore is full of shit. All right, so she had said that the reason why she wanted to get the parental warning on albums was because she's like saw her like 10-year-old daughter dancing to this song, which is a lie. This is the least danceable song on the entire album. Unless you're already a stripper, at which point then it's probably a good dance song, which I assume her daughter wasn't. So Tipper, you're full of shit. Sorry.
If you were a stripper, this wouldn't be a good. This song is stilted. Like, that is my note on this. This song, it's like so just like jarring and stilted. It doesn't flow at all. It's anti-dance to me.
Yeah, this song sucks.
Yeah.
This
song does suck.
You have basically one production trick, which is to drop out the bass out of your songs, which
And that's-
I get it.
and that's it.
It was a cool, innovative idea, but you overused it. It's hey Prince, you there? Prince, you there, buddy?
He's dead. He's dead.
Prince, you over there? Look for a little role play action here, Tom.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Prince, buddy. This is
What's going on, Rob? How you doing?
Hey, well, it's not Rob. It's actually your bass player, Terry. We grew up together. We're brothers, basically.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
I was thinking for this next tune, I got this cool bass line that I
like your
wrote.
props, by the way.
I've been working on it. I've been working real hard on this bass line. What do you think? Can we get this into? This is gonna sound great over your screaming vamp.
How about you shut your whore mouth? There's no bass.
God damn it again, Prince.
Only my ideas.
This has been a production of the. That's awesome.
Oh man, I want to get back just for a second to a comment that Rob made earlier about how poorly his portrayal in Purple Rain ages. The way that he treats women is terrible.
Oh my God,
Not just from the
I
standpoint of
know.
like hitting them occasionally, the psychological stuff that he does. It's really weird and really controlling, and I kind of don't like. Even Apollonia at the time, who was a woman he was trying to make a career for, because he made a career for lots of women. Let's also get that out there. He definitely took a lot of women, got them famous, wrote songs for them, gave them a career. I'm sure because he was trying to bang them, most likely. I'm just going to guess that. He was a great, he was a philanthropist later on in life, and apparently gave away a lot of money, did it anonymously, but there's no way that he wasn't doing this with some ulterior motives. But even Apollonia in the movie, as she's acting, she must be like, am I supposed to like this? Like, I'm clearly dealing with this weird abusive stuff from you in real life because you're going to give me a career, but in the movie, you're just some asshole who's like the third string act at a club. Why would I take this from you? I liked how in the movie, this song, Darling Nikki, particularly, even in the movie, they were all like, that was embarrassingly terrible. And I can't believe that you did that. It's going to ruin your career. And then it ends up on the album very prominently.
Yeah, this isn't one of the live tracks though, right? Because there is that weird.
No.
I one of my notes was, what the fuck is up with that duck quack part into the gospel choir? That is the most tacked on outro I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's like back.
When did he become religious, by the way? Because contracting this tune with whatever,
Oh yeah,
So-
he's a Jehovah's
Seventh
Witness,
Day
right?
or okay,
He
got
was
it.
raised
All right.
Seventh-day Adventist, became a Jehovah's Witness later in life, and by the way, like apparently did the Jehovah's Witness thing that you have to do, like went out and proselytized and knocked on doors and shit to tell people about the good word. I bet you he probably had the highest conversion rate of anybody. They're like, so wait, if I go to church, I get to hang out with Prince? Yeah, all right, I can see that. We're going to talk about on another song that has a lot of really religious overtones. I think that it was kind of a through line for most of his life. I think that, oddly enough, this guy who was somewhat known as like a sex pest freak, not a sex pest, but like a freaky dude who was probably into some weird sex stuff.
At least a lot of sex.
I think he was pretty religious for most of his life. It seems to be kind of a through line in a lot of the stuff that he has done. There's a interview that Questlove gave where he's talked about being at Paisley Park, the studio that Prince built, in his home, and basically they were hanging out, and Prince apparently had a swear jar, and he was really militant about it. Like if you said shit or whatever, he would make you put like $20 in it. Like it was not like it was like put $20 in the swear jar. Yeah. And Questlove apparently was there and was just talking like a normal human being talks. And Prince was like, hey, like you got to put some money in that swear jar. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I don't allow swearing in here. And he said to him, you were the guy growing up that taught me what it was to be dirty. He's like, I listened to your stuff and it was sexual and dirty. Like you taught me that. And apparently Prince got really bummed out about that and was like, oh man, really? Oh, that sucks. Like I totally did not mean to do that for a generation of youth. It's like, I don't know how you thought you were not going to do that, dressing in like assless pants and stuff like that.
I mean, back to what he was unabashedly great at was image curation, right? And I heard an anecdote in there somewhere that he kind of talked to the other folks in the band, and he was like, everyone is going to represent a different archetype on stage, but and you're going to dress that way and you're going to exude that. And his archetype was pure sexuality, and that was very much like a designed thing. So credit to him for that. I think he really, that plus picking the color, which when we get to the song Purple Rain, like I want to know, was purple already associated with him? I'm a little confused about that, but all very smart moves from an image curation point of view.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely good at being famous. Like that, and I think that is a skill. I think it is a skill to be good at being famous. So yeah, one thing I will say is that I liked over the third chorus of this song, there's some really nice guitar work. It's kind of just like picky guitar work.
Before there's a kind of cool solo before the choir.
Weird break. Say that it was one of those things that never occurred to me in my earlier listening of Prince that he actually was kind of a shredder. The things that I would hear on the album, I guess not having done a deeper dive of the specifics of it, I would think that there was just somebody else. Like you got Steve Vai to come and do that or something.
Yeah, he rips, but it's also like it's not you never hear a guitar player shred, and then that's like not what the band's about, right? Like kind of at all, It is maybe one place where he shows a lot of restraint as a producer. Like a lot.
I don't know if I'd say it that way. The band's definitely about him. But
Sure.
I know what you mean. Not all the music is dictated by the electric guitar, so fair enough. And he definitely is a good guitar player.
But I see your point, though. It's like when you're playing everything, what does it matter?
Yeah. You're already showing off the entire time, basically. Speaking of a song that starts with some really interesting guitar work, we're going to move on to the smash hit guitar lick. It's just like, 20 seconds or like 4 seconds or something like that. It gave me like Skunk Baxter vibes just in terms of like the notes that it chooses to hold on and bend to and stuff like that. It's just a really weird way to approach the guitar and the tonals.
You think about the timing too, like this is kind of an interesting like response to the existence of Eddie Van Halen, right? Like nobody else really had a response, right? That was in the mainstream.
I had like kind of a closing joke about that I think the best touchtone for Prince might be the band Van Halen, because he's half Eddie on guitar, half David Lee Roth on strange vocal nonsense in the booth, and in addition to all that, I'm sensing a lot of anger towards the bass player.
This particular song is when it works very well. If you listen to When Doves Cry, it's not just that there's no bass. There's like nothing except for the weird E drums until like almost a full minute into the song. Like after that intro, they go into like a full minute of just singing over drums, which is kind of weird for a smash, hugely successful song.
Hey Prince, are you there, buddy?
Hey, what's
Prince.
up? What's up, Rob? How you doing?
Prince, this is Jimmy, your drummer
Oh,
from
hey,
the
what's up,
Revolution.
I like her hair.
I know we got the session tomorrow for the first single, and I just wanted you to know I've been working really hard on this drum beat, and I think it's gonna be really funky. It's gonna really lay a nice bed for you to do your thing, man. I'm just excited to be a part of this session.
You should probably work harder on your mascara. We're just gonna put in some E drums, all right?
How dare you?
No, honestly, I think that this is an E drum kit. I don't think it's a drum machine. I'm pretty sure this is him playing an E drum kit live, but it does feel very synthetic. Yes, but I dig this song. I used to hate this song, and I actually really dig it now.
I hear you on the I used to hate it. I like it more now than I once did. I found this to really... So my exposure to the movie Purple Rain, and therefore my initial exposure to a lot of these songs, was I had the cable channel Prism growing up because they had the Philadelphia Flyers away games. And this was like one of 6 movies they had paid for. So this was just like infomercials. Like this was just running constantly. So I never really watched it, yet it was always on. And this sequence just really sticks out as particularly odd and weird.
I'll say this for it. I'll play the other side a little bit. This is an iconic song, and what I mean by that is not only was it a huge hit, but it really doesn't sound like anything else. Nothing else. This production is thoroughly strange and apart. You know, it's its own thing, right? From the production, everything about the production is just weird. From how it's structured, it really stands out in the musical canon as being a singular thing. I don't think the other songs have that quality, personally.
I would say that you're right about that. It is a well-written song. I think that especially talking about maybe I'm just like my mother, maybe I'm just like my father. Like those are relatable lines. But you're right about the weirdness of the production choices. There's not a held chord in this song until 2 minutes and 50 seconds in. That's the first time you get a chord that is held. Every other time it's like
staccato,
plucked through staccato stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, it would not be fair of me, as much as I do like Prince, to not mention the pet peeve that I have on many of the other songs, artists that I've called out before, is that this is a 5 minute and 52-second song that could have been a 3 minute and 20-second song and not lost anything, and in fact gained quite a lot. There's a lot of outro to this song.
And that's a complaint I have for a bunch of the tunes. But just to stay on the structure and the production, it takes a lot of weird turns. He does the weird vocal harmonized, almost sex noise section that then leads into a fifth of Beethoven synth solo. He's got ripping guitar at the intro. He's got ripping guitar kind of later in the song, but in the middle, like you said, there's almost no guitar. Certainly none of that particular electric guitar. I think it's all synth and drums and synth drums. It's just it's bizarre.
The hook is so weak too. Like the intro, which is that ripping guitar, and it's getting ready to come in, and you're like, yes, this is gonna kick ass. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. Like it sounds like an Oompa Loompa song being played on, I don't know. It just,
but
I never.
Say, it is impressive that holds down the tonal center of the song, and like you hear the chord changes in there, even though there's almost nothing to even imply them in a lot of different places. So I find it to be an exercise in impressive restraint on this song. I think that I know why you don't like this song, Adam. Rob, I know why you don't like this song because it kept Dancing in the Dark out of being the #1 song in America.
I like this. I like this song just fine, and I think it's a credit to what Prince can do when he's really being creative. And I think the reason you can hear those chord changes is in large part due to the quality of his vocal. That he vibratos through a lot of those notes, he falsettos through a lot of those notes, and implies a lot of what's going on. He harmonizes himself, which I don't think he does on many of the other tracks, if any of them, where he doubles himself, or he does some other stuff where he stacks vocals. So to me, this is actually a really good version of Prince. I wouldn't say I particularly love the song, but I admit that it's very good.
Tom, does My Dick Band do a cover of this?
They do
cry?
not. They do not. So
okay,
that would be a great one. Yeah. They they haven't put out a follow-up album, unfortunately.
Oh man, all right.
Writer's
block.
Right.
I mean, they write themselves. Come on. Right. One of the few bands out there that's like pay what you want, and I was like, I will pay like full freight for this album. I'm going to go ahead and give you the full $20 that you deserve for this one.
Art deserves to be recognized.
Art deserves to be recognized. Very much like the next song that we're going to talk about here, "I Would Die for You." Spelled I would die, number 4, letter U. Apparently that's a Prince thing, and he would write almost exclusively in that type of a script where he would simplify it as much as possible, do a little bit of like that Orwellian like new. If you want me to.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug, guys.
So this song's about Jesus. Did you know that?
Wow.
Whoa. Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Like the line, like, "I'm your Messiah, you're the reason why. All I really need to know is that you believe. If you're evil, I'll forgive you." Like, it's about Jesus. This song is legitimately about Jesus.
After the rest of the album, though, you assume it's about sex and like he is the Messiah.
Dude, Jesus bangs. Come on.
Oh my God.
Jesus was a lot nicer to women, I think.
I would, yes.
I didn't watch the movie again.
I don't know. Back in the day, it might have been like, it was an open hand slap. Look how caring and gentle he is. Don't spare your wife the rod.
Well, Phil, in the movie, the first egregious moment of Prince being a true asshole is that he convinces Apollonia to dive into this lake naked, and she gets out, and then he like hops on his motorcycle and drives away. As she's like completely soaked in the middle of a field, like 50 miles away from everything.
In
Minnesota.
This
like,
is in SoCal, where it's like,
right. I can just walk.
Dip.
Yeah.
This seemed to be like fall in Minnesota.
I mean, so it's like 10.
Yeah.
Right. It's just kind of like you're watching it now and you're like, wow, he's an asshole. Like,
sure. Now, you mentioned that it's super 80s, and I 100% agree with you that it's super 80s, but I think that this might be one of those things that did so much of the defining of a sound for a several year period of time that, like, when you say it's so 80s, it sounds like it's derivative or something like that. But I think this might have been defining and not derivative.
I actually think, and as one of my notes here on this song specifically is, I actually think this song sort of aged the best. Like, I think if another pop star released this today, and it was more or less just a different vocal, their vocal, I could see this being
I could see that. Today. And I could see what you're saying about the sound, too. I can buy that. One of the things, I don't know if this is how related an anecdote is, but one of the things I heard that crystallizes it a little bit for me was the idea that a previous example, pre-Purple Rain example of the Minneapolis sound, so-called Minneapolis sound that they were influenced by, was that song Funky Town. You can probably call back the exact synth tones that are being used in that tune. So I don't know. To me, it's relatively easy to draw that line and then take that into the 80s.
I thought the synth tones at 110, it's this weird duck kind of horn noise that is just appear on your list because I feel like this is one of the more egregious synth disasters on the album. Synth crimes.
I don't mind super synthy songs when it's not a rock song that just has synth thrown on top of it.
Right? Not the synth pad of like the soundscape synth sound versus the right.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind a bunch of 80s stuff that is very synthy. My problem with the Bruce stuff was that I just felt like I just wanted it to be more Bruce and less 80s.
Sure.
And it was a little bit too 80s and not Bruce enough. This is certainly 80s enough.
Even the best of us can be wrong, Tom, but...
And Bruce was. Yes, he was.
Jeez.
Apart from the terrible grammar, which Jesus certainly wouldn't approve of in the song title, what is going on right at the opening second of the song? Go listen to that for a second, rewind it a couple times, and like, what is that? Or I know what it is. I think it's like a little guitar slide or something, but it makes no sense. It doesn't drop into anything.
Yeah.
It's the opening note to that Blues Traveler song. Run around, yeah.
Great call. Yo, you know what that is? That's the bass player.
That's the only low he was able to get. Prince, just give me a little something. You got 1/10 of a second.
It's Terry, man.
At the start.
That's great. The 80s on top of it sounds like the stilled 80s.
I definitely feel
go
like
right to the source.
Yeah, if you were going back and saying like, how am I going to make my record sound 80s but not cliche? I could see browsing this album and sort of IDing this song. It's like, oh, there's some characteristics here I could emulate that don't feel totally played out, right? But also are obviously like very 80s, like very, of the times, yeah.
Yeah, like exactly. You don't hear this and be like, what was that, like 91 that was coming out?
Sure, yeah.
But it also has a connection to the present, which is to say that it sounds a little lo-fi, like someone made it on their laptop as a single person doing this project.
Or they recorded it live in front of a crowd at a benefit concert, which they did.
Is that really what this is? This is a live take?
This is a live take, yeah.
Oh, that is surprising to me.
Right?
Wow.
It's pretty surprising. It's a live take.
Now I'm way more impressed.
They didn't do any overdubs or anything on the live takes?
They did a few overdubs, but all of the vocals are live. The drums that you're hearing were live. They're the E-drums, but they were recorded live. I don't know if they specifically did any. I don't believe they did any overdubs on this. They did string overdubs on the song "Purple Rain" that were not in the live version of it that was recorded, but it was pretty minimal.
So it must be it's the sound guy diving for the bass volume. That's why we get that little bass thing at the beginning.
Oh,
It's
he's
like,
gotta turn it, yeah.
Get that volume up. Prince is gonna fire me.
The guy who recorded it was actually the brother of the drummer. And apparently he called him up and was just like, hey, we're playing a benefit concert and I kind of want to record it. I don't know, maybe we'll use it for something. So he brought this like mobile recording rig to actually the place, the First Avenue, that a lot of,
it's like the big spot.
Purple Rain was shot in. Yeah.
And that's definitely like a cool spot in Minneapolis. I think that's like Minneapolis's version of like the Tower. I don't know how big the room is, but it's like, it's the spot.
I've never been to Minneapolis. It just seems like a square city. I don't know, prove me wrong, all of our listeners.
I hear it's pretty all right.
Greater Twin Cities.
I've heard it's on the come, but I think at this time it was actually kind of hip, and this is shortly after this you had all that indie. You had an indie scene like Husker Du leading into Soul Asylum coming out of there.
I did not realize it's Soul Asylum. I thought they were Pacific Northwest, but
no,
Midwest. You're not exactly selling me on it with Husker Du and the Soul Asylum, by the way. All right.
The fact that we could think of two bands that came from there,
It's
plus
impressive.
Prince, is better than most American cities.
Yeah.
Better than most Americans. Minneapolis is a pretty big city, though. It's certainly
Sure.
I guess more people than I could say the name.
Name two artists out of Cleveland.
The President of the United States of America. And I don't have another one.
Drew Carey.
Nailed it. Yes.
Let's move on to the last song on the album, the last song that we're going to talk about, the song Purple Rain. I'm sure everybody's heard it, but let's still play some of it just in case you've never been in the mood for it. But when you're in the mood for it, this song hits very well. I'm seeing Adam. I'm going to ask you your opinion on this song because you look like
I have never been in the mood for this song.
Wow.
Really?
It gets good at the 7-minute mark where the strings come in and do all of these crazy diminished
after the band finishes.
After the band finishes, and the overdub strings come in and start doing all kinds of crazy. This song. I don't know if it's because it's been omnipresent. It never did it for me.
Is this you hate joy and fun? Is that it?
I think I do. Yeah, that might be.
This isn't joy, but
No,
this is
it's
kind
not
of like got a cathartic, emotional, waving your lighter in a stadium vibe.
Oh,
to it.
sure. Yeah.
Recreated on a record, which I do think is impressive. I like I just want to point out, because Adam just mentioned the end of the song, I timestamped it. The band hits the final chord of the song at 6:40, yet the track has over 2 minutes left.
Yep. Oh, this is the trimmed down version of it. The original version of it that they
good
recorded
God.
live clocks in at 11 minutes. And they did edits throughout the song. There was a third verse that they cut out. There was another guitar solo that they cut out. So, honestly, a lot of credit to Bobby Z, the drummer, for being locked in. Because you cannot tell where those cuts come from.
Oh, snap.
He's got
right.
to have a click track in his ear or something.
And
even so, still, like, nailed it.
Props to
you know?
Props to him for
absolutely.
that,
Well,
fuck yeah. Not
I
easy.
want to know how much, because it comes off like improvisation, but it very well might not be. Both Prince's vocal vamp at the end, which I think is a great little melody, and the little 3-note guitar line.
That you asked that. You can find a video of the original performance of Purple Rain that was used on the album. I found it on a Reddit forum like years ago, and he finds that he finds it in the he's playing a bunch of different
Live
stuff, and he's
there.
kind of going around it, and then he finds it, and they just snip out all of the searching, and they just give you the finding in the,
That's
in
pretty
the final
cool.
version of it.
That's pretty
and
cool.
it's like a shitty recording. It looks like somebody stuck a camcorder like in the back corner of the room, and it's not even well
A
centered or anything like
1983
that.
camcorder,
Yeah.
by the way. So it's like, I'm sure it looks like garbage.
And it's like the intro where the guitar comes in, it goes on for like a minute and a half. And then they end up, you're just like waiting for it to start. And that's actually kind of the way that he performs it live. There's a ton of intro when he performs it live.
I can see milking it live, though. I mean, yeah, for a live version, it makes sense. It makes sense that it goes on so long.
I would stretch this to 20 if I was, right? This is your encore
this is the whole
song. And
set, man.
you stretch it to 20 and you end the night on it.
Yeah, and if it's raining, it's the whole set. Right. The rhythm guitar, because I feel like I haven't been very nice about the tone. Most of the tones on this record don't really strike me as that great. In fact, they're a little grating. But I like the rhythm guitar tone on this, which is not Prince's electric guitar, right?
The like the chorusy sound at the beginning.
Yes,
yeah,
correct,
I agree.
yeah.
And also after the record basically doesn't have guitar, it feels very fresh, right? It's a fresh sound. 40 minutes
true.
in.
So apparently, Wendy Melvoin, the guitar player, is somewhat responsible. Like in the movie, Lisa and Wendy, the keys woman who plays the keys and the woman who plays guitar, are credited with writing this song. Prince wrote the song, but he wrote this as a country song. And it was originally supposed to be a country song, and then he heard Wendy. They was like, "Hey, let's just try this song at the end of a practice." And he started playing it, and then Wendy started playing it the way that it appears on the album with that kind of intro guitar. And he was like, scrap all of the thoughts I had about the way that this song is supposed to sound. We're going to completely reproduce it. They apparently worked for like 6 straight hours on it, and then they were like, that's it. That's the song. It's done. Which I thought was really interesting. I would like to hear what the country version of this song would sound like.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I didn't learn the tune, but maybe Adam or Phil or somebody has learned it. But what are they using? They're using like a lot of open strings in those chords. Is that what makes it sound? I know the chord progression kind of descends, but they're using like ninths or something. Do you know what they're doing there?
I mean, I don't know, but it sounds like that opening might be a G, and then they open that up to the E, so you get that low dom, but you still get the same droning.
That goes
I'm
down
not talking about
to
the
G.
bass though. I'm more talking about like the notes on top of the chords sound very open stringy with consistency, more so than just strumming through open chords. I wasn't sure if what chord extensions know the answer to that question.
I do not.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question either. But I think if you watch the performance of it that they do in Purple Rain, she's actually playing the song. Like, not the real recorded version of it, but she's actually playing it, so you can see what chord she's playing in the...
Okay, I'll pay for that again on Amazon. Just to get that information.
Another $3.99. Do you want it in standard or high def?
Definitely worth it, yeah.
All right.
This song is actually the last song that Prince ever performed live because, as most people probably know, he sadly passed away in April of 2016 at the age of 57 from an accidental fentanyl overdose.
Jeez.
Which,
Same thing that killed MJ, right?
No, MJ died of a propofol overdose.
Ah, my bad. Okay.
Which is propofol is it's an anesthetic, and he had a doctor who was an anesthesiologist who was like giving it to him to help him sleep, but he's clearly addicted to it. But Tom Petty also died of an accidental fentanyl overdose. It's just I think this was around the time that fentanyl was really kind of blowing up and fucking everybody over, and people were getting killed left and right that were just trying to do probably like some cocaine or something like that, and got some fentanyl in it. Anyway, I don't want to speculate as to what or why he was using it, but yeah, he died of an accidental fentanyl overdose, which
what was that 5 years ago?
Sucks.
Is it 10 years ago? When
no,
was
it was like 6 years ago.
Okay, got it.
Which again, that just sucks. I don't have a problem with the length of this song, Adam. I know you were complaining about the length and about how it is certainly indulgent. I will say that, but it has a bit of that.
You guys pointed out some things that I didn't necessarily. Not that I wrote this song off, just because again I've heard it 1,000 times. Luckily, never had to play it because I honestly don't think I could do it justice. No, it's good hearing some additional thoughts on it that I didn't necessarily have in my head going through this for the 8,000th time in my life.
Tom, which songs were recorded live again? You said
it was
Purple Rain.
Purple Rain, I Would Die for You, and what was the other one? Hold on, I have it in my notes here at the beginning. Oh, Baby I'm a Star is the other one that was recorded live.
So the last 3 tracks. Interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just curious.
I had known that this was recorded live, and I was sort of like, oh, they did a really great job of cutting out the crowd sound. I don't think that they actually cut the crowd sound out. I think the crowd was being quiet. Yeah.
And you can hear there are points in it where it does sound like there are some cheers and some ambient background crowd noise.
Yeah, I got to note that there's like a guy who like right at the beginning of the third verse was like, I know times have changed. And some guy in the crowd just goes, woo! And he like forever that guy is just imprinted upon digital media for the rest of eternity.
I'm sure Prince hates that guy.
Probably. But yeah, again, this is a song that has a time and place. It's almost oddly kind of like stadium anthem type of music. I would have really loved to have seen this live. I think that this would have crushed live. And oddly, one of those songs that would have been better with, 30,000 people than it would have been in a 300-person club.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Didn't we see it? Didn't we see Fish do it?
Did we see Fish do it?
With a vacuum cleaner or something? I'm sure. Well, Phil is the Fish historian.
I do not know that I have seen Fish perform Purple Rain with a vacuum cleaner. Let me get back to you.
I am pretty sure. I remember the show that it was an indoor show, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought it all blends together, to be honest. But
I wonder why. All right. Before we digress into talking about
vacuum solos.
Before we start going through the catalog of the John Fishman vacuum solos here, which I'm sure is just riveting listening for our viewers.
I mean, if you really want to run down all the instruments Prince has ever played, is vacuum ever listed?
What a puss.
Yeah, seriously. All right, you know what? I'm changing my vote. But let's get to it.
No one should play vacuum. It sounds terrible.
Let's get to it, listeners. Let's get to the voting. We have beaten this album to death, dissected it, talked it up, talked it down, figured out that Adam is anhedonic and just can't appreciate good art, and that Rob is bitter about Bruce Springsteen being kept off of the number 1 spot. So let's get to the voting. Adam, I'm going to throw it to you first. Is this an album that you need to hear before you die?
Yeah, so off the top here, I didn't know a lot of, or I've never listened to a Prince album all the way through. However, this one came off like a Wish.com version of itself, which it just didn't do it for me. I thought it was, we mentioned earlier, it was a little disjointed. There's, 1 or 2 bangers on there, but I think you can pass on this one.
Okay, so we have 1 incorrect vote so far. Phil, what is?
I am actually gonna go ahead and agree with Adam on this one. While this has just a couple mega smash hits, and this isn't a diss to Prince at all, well, his skill at all. It's obviously a diss to Prince. This, as an album, as 45 minutes of listening, this is tough, right? This is expert level stuff, and it could not hold my interest in that way. So I'm gonna give it a no.
I'm gonna flip this goddamn table when we get to Rob's. Let's hear it.
This is the same group who voted off synchronicity, by the way. So you got no legs to stand on over here. Well, I'm going to surprise you and go yes. What? Because I think that Prince is an undeniable force of nature. I ascribe to the idea that, it's important to hear these songs, I would say more than once. And here's how I'll say it. You can't have not heard Purple Rain or When Doves Cry, understandably. But I think that listening to the album forces you to pay a little closer attention. And I do think they're worthy of that closer level of attention. Does the whole album, is it great front to back? No, definitely not. And will it in fact deflate maybe a little bit of Prince's mystique in your collective consciousness should you, the world, listen to it? Yeah, probably, but maybe that's for the better. But either way, he's a force of nature. He's had a huge impact on the music industry, and I do think this is his best work. So yeah, I say yes.
All right. Rob, I'm going to disagree with you that this is his best work. I think 1999 is a better album than Purple Rain, personally. But I am also going to vote yes, that you should listen to this. I will say an emphatic no, that you do not need to see the movie Purple Rain. But
please do not give any more of your money to those filmmakers.
But you should listen to this album, and I will agree with you, Rob, that I think that it warrants closer attention than the cursory listening that you probably have given it throughout most of your life if you are a person who's just familiar with music from the 80s. And I also do think that it had a defining impact on a lot of the 80s sound, a lot of the 80s style. And yeah, you're right. You're going to listen to this and be like, I was expecting Prince's magnum opus to be just banger after banger after banger, and it is definitely not that. It's got some real high highs, it's got some low lows, and it's got some filler too, but I still think that it is worth your time to listen to, especially because Prince gets brought up in conversation a lot, and if you want to have something intelligently snarky to say about some of the shittier Prince songs, you can listen to this album.
That's a really good point. I'm not going to change my vote, but I thank you. I appreciate the insight. Yes,
made it all worth it.
Yes, totally.
Like next time that you're at a party and somebody is like, hey, and then Prince is just the greatest artist of all time. You're going to be like, oh, really? Baby, I'm a Star. Can we talk about that one for a second here? Yeah. You know what? I have a very funny anecdote that how this podcast helped me in life. I was with my wife. She had, through her company, gotten a trip where we went without the kids. We were at an island in the Caribbean. A bunch of her coworkers were there. We were on a boat. We had just gone snorkeling, and we were going out to a bar that was literally like a hut in the middle of the ocean. DJ blasting music on there, but it was just somebody controlling it on their iPhone, but they had a great speaker system. And one of the older coworkers came up and was like, hey, can you guys play Buffalo Stance by Nena Cherry?
Whoa.
I don't think that's going to happen. But hey, I was like, yeah, I know from the opening track from the album We're All Like Sushi. Totally. I know it's 1989's We're All Like Sushi. She was like, oh, you're so cool.
Smash cut to Tom crunching down on the cyanide pill that he takes on every vacation.
It's happening. It's happening.
I did the adult version of it and was just like, give me yet another Mai Tai so I don't have to worry about this. But yeah, I was definitely like, oh my God, 5.5 minutes of Buffalo Stance coming my way. But she was like, oh, you know exactly what, you're a fan too. And I was like, sure, yes.
It's no man-child, but yes.
It's no man-child. Oh, that's great.
Tom, before we jump off, in your research this week, did you find any information on whether or not Bat Dance was or was not actually popular? Because I couldn't really seem to find much on it. There's a very long music video. It's very confusing.
I remember that.
But I imagine that this was
Michael
a smash
Keaton
hit, right? This was probably huge.
Sounds like a Mandela effect situation.
Wait a second. weekly charts found it.
Yeah, I'm gonna bum you out here and say that Bat Dance probably did really, really well.
Fuck, it hit number one
Did it really hit number one?
in the U.S. and Canada.
Ooh, it really did. Ouch.
Was that 88, I'm guessing? Batman 89. All right.
Oh man, you guys should really. In addition, if you just go down the Bat Dance, like if you just decide to torture yourself, there's I think it's called the Vicky Vale remix. Definitely check that out. That's definitely worth 15 minutes or so of your life. Don't miss it.
Another thing that I just want to throw out there, then this is the complete non sequitur, but I can't help but mention it, is that UHF also came out like the week that I believe it was Batman, and what was there was one other huge movie that came out that week that like UHF was pitched against and just completely bombed, even though it had tested through the roof.
You know me, UHF is like one of my top 10 movies of all time.
Oh, you know what it was?
Hold on. Do you guys like Weird Al? I didn't know that from doing this podcast.
So in the month that UHF was released, Batman, Lethal Weapon 2, When Harry Met Sally, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Ghostbusters 2, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade came out.
Poor Weird Al.
Just got completely swamped by and Weekend at Bernie's. So like a bunch of
Those
just
came out the same weekend as UHF.
not the same weekend. Indiana Jones and Batman came out the same weekend. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Ghostbusters 2 and Lethal Weapon, they all came out like within like the
same
bracketed
month.
by weeks, yeah. So competing for all those dollars. Anyway, that's Weird Al's career could have been
break.
so much better if he could have had a long and storied movie career, because apparently it tested through the roof, and they thought it was going to be a hit, and then it just got completely dogged by some real stone cold killers. Anyway, if you think that we are right about our love for UHF, please come and write us at 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com. That is 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com. Always love to hear from our listeners. We do get a lot of cool emails that have interesting insights. We always want to talk to people that are big fans of the work that we're dissecting, and hopefully you can provide some perspective that we were not able to get in a week's worth of research. So 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com. Subscribe, tell a friend, give us a review. That'd be great. I don't really care what you say, but it definitely helps get the word out there, helps more people see it. The more reviews that are out there, whatever their weird algorithms do, they look at reviews kindly. So if you guys want to do that, that would be great. Only thing left for us to do now is to get our homework assignment for next week. So I have the Albinator here. I have it all primed and ready to go. Hopefully it will be the Batman soundtrack that we're going to listen to. I know that they're very excited about that. All right, well, let's check it out. Drum roll, please. Next week we will be listening to... It's an animal thing. It's not a Batman. It's a mermaid. Mermaid Avenue by Billy Bragg and Wilco. Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know that.
Dad Rock, here we come.
Yeah, I mean, I know Wilco.
Excellent.
I feel like, I guess we'll dig in.
This is like post, or like maybe like post Wilco breaking up, or like right around when Wilco broke up, or something like that. I don't know.
But before they
didn't
got
break
back
up.
together.
Didn't they? They broke up at one point, right?
No, I think one of the founding members left at some point, and they happened to be making a documentary at the time.
Okay.
That
Whatever.
happened in the early 2000s, I want to say.
I was never a huge Wilco fan. That Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, whatever that.
Yep.
Yeah. That's an okay album. Not bad. Rob, I remember you put me onto that by putting undeniably the best song on the album on a mix for me, and then I listened to the rest of the album, and I was like, okay, well, all downhill from that one song.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's everybody listen to Mermaid Avenue for next week. We will be giving some nice long drawn out opinions on that, and as always, really appreciate everybody listening, giving us a little bit of your time. Hopefully you learned a bit, hopefully you had some fun, had some laughs, maybe had some smashing your headphones in disagreement moments. Always like that too. But until next week, I have been Tom.
I'm Adam.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Rob.
A boosh.
Smash cut to Tom crunching down on the cyanide pill that he takes on every vacation.
It's happening. It's happening.